I ate alone on Mother's Day, until the delivery driver handed me my son's confession by mistake. Before I begin my story, I just want to say thank you for listening as I pour my heart out. Let me know in the comments where you're tuning in from and what time it is. I love hearing from you. If you haven't already, please hit the subscribe button. It helps me more than you know. And if you'd like to share your story with me, feel free to email it. I'll drop my email in the comments and description below. Now let me tell you what really happened. Mother's Day used to be my favorite holiday. Not because of the cards or the flowers, but because it was the one day of the year my family seemed to remember who I was before I became an afterthought. When Douglas was younger, he'd wake me up with breakfast on a tray and construction paper hearts taped to a paper plate. When Ava was small, she used to pick wildflowers from the backyard and bring them over in her tiny fists, petals missing, stems bent. Those were the days my house felt like a home. This morning, the silence was louder than usual. I woke up early, made the bed, and put on my Sunday blouse just in case they stopped by. I even set out the good china, the ones with the little blue roses that only came out twice a year. I baked a lemon pound cake the night before and let it cool under a mesh dome like my mother taught me. I told myself maybe they're coming later. Maybe brunch turned into lunch or lunch into dinner. I wasn't about to give up hope before noon. By 11, I'd already brewed a fresh pot of tea. I laid out napkins. I sliced the cake into perfect pieces and placed 3 on the serving tray. 1 for me, 1 for Douglas, and 1 for Ava. I didn't bother plating 1 for Rachel. I knew better than to expect her. I called once just to check. The phone rang 5 times before it went to voicemail. I didn't leave a message. He knew what day it was. I wasn't going to beg to be remembered. By 2 o'clock, I gave up waiting at the table and brought my plate into the living room. I sat in my favorite chair, facing the window, watching neighbors come and go with balloons and gift bags and plastic containers full of potato salad. I saw Mrs. Jenkins' daughter pull into the driveway across the street with a bouquet bigger than her torso. She wore heels. That's how you knew she respected her mama. I stared at my tea, lukewarm now, and told myself maybe there was traffic. Or maybe they had a last-minute emergency. Or maybe they just forgot. No, Rachel wouldn't let them forget. That woman runs the house like a courtroom. If anything, it was on purpose. I ate my cake in silence. I didn't cry. I refused to. I was not going to shed tears over being invisible. Not today. I've lived long enough to know when you're no longer the center of your child's world, you become background noise. The kind of love you once gave is something they grow out of. But I kept my dignity. I held that fork like it was a scepter and ate every bite like it was served at a 5-star restaurant. Around 4, there was a knock at the door. I blinked. My heart jumped. For a moment, I thought maybe they had come after all. Maybe Ava begged to come see me and Douglas folded. I smoothed my blouse, brushed the crumbs off my lap, and walked to the door with slow, even steps, pretending I wasn't holding my breath. When I opened it, it wasn't Douglas. It was a young man in a brown delivery jacket, holding a large catering bag in one hand and a white envelope in the other. "Delivery for Carter," he said. I blinked. That's me. Great. This was scheduled for today. I was running late, sorry about that. Here's the food, and this came with it. He handed me the warm bag and the envelope. I was confused, but I thanked him anyway. Maybe Douglas ordered food and had it delivered as a surprise. He'd done that once before, sent a pie when Ava got the flu and couldn't visit. Maybe this was his way of making up for not showing up. "Enjoy, ma'am," the man said, then walked back to his car. I brought the bag into the kitchen and set it down. The smell hit me first. Stuffed chicken breasts, mashed potatoes, asparagus. My stomach growled. I opened the bag and found containers, all labeled for 3 people. I smiled a little, even if it was a sad smile. Maybe this was their peace offering. A small one, but still. Then I opened the envelope. That's when everything stopped. It wasn't a card. It wasn't a message from Douglas or Ava or even Rachel. It was a letterhead. From a retirement facility. A high-end one. The kind with spa packages and wood floors and scenic walking trails. At first I thought it was a mistake. But then I saw the details. "Welcome to your future residence at Morning Grove Retirement Living." Below that, my name. Mildred Carter. And below that, my son's email address. douglas.carter@gmail.com. The form detailed a confirmed move-in date. It listed my known allergies, my medications, and a preferred payment method. Payment method, linked to my checking account. My account. My legs went numb.
I gripped the counter to keep from falling. I read it again, slower this time. This wasn't a brochure. This wasn't a suggestion. It was a finalized welcome packet. A confirmation. I wasn't just being forgotten. I was being removed. My son had submitted the paperwork. My daughter-in-law must have helped him. He planned to send me away. Quietly. Without asking. Without warning. While I sat alone on Mother's Day, they were finalizing my disappearance. I stood there for what felt like an hour, staring at that letter. My knees locked, my hands frozen on the countertop. My name. My medical details. My bank account. All printed out in neat rows like I was a piece of furniture being moved. Not a mother. Not a human being. Just a problem to be quietly solved. I picked up the catering bag again. My hands trembled as I pulled out the packing slip taped to the side. It confirmed the order. 3 plates. 1 for Douglas. 1 for Rachel. 1 for her mother. Not me. I wasn't even an afterthought. I looked back at the retirement home letter. There was a sticky note attached at the top. It was handwritten in Rachel's sharp, rushed script. Here's the packet for Doug to sign. Once it's official, she'll be out before summer. Thank God. I couldn't breathe. That note wasn't meant for me. It wasn't meant for anyone who cared about me. It was meant for the man I raised and the woman I tried so hard to get along with. And it came into my hands by sheer accident. A single moment of clumsy fate. One delivery driver handing the wrong envelope to the wrong woman. Or maybe the right one. I sank into my kitchen chair. The house was silent, but it felt loud now. My heartbeat echoed in my ears. The hum of the fridge sounded like a warning. For so long I'd ignored the signs. The way Rachel talked over me during dinner. The way Douglas stopped calling unless he needed something. The way they discouraged Ava from spending too much time here. It all made sense now. They weren't waiting for me to get sick. They were planning around it. I remembered a conversation from last fall. Douglas asking if I'd updated my will, suggesting we streamline my finances. At the time I thought he was just being responsible. I even thanked him for looking out for me. I didn't know he was looking to take over. And Rachel, she always hated this house. Said it was too old, too cluttered, not good resale material. I should have known when she offered to help me declutter last Christmas that she was really sizing it up. I stood and walked into the hallway, down to the linen closet where I kept the fireproof box. I opened it and pulled out my financial folder. Inside, bank records, property deeds, insurance policies. I flipped through until I saw the account number listed on the retirement packet. There it was. My checking account. I'd given Douglas access 5 years ago when I had surgery on my hip. Just in case of emergencies, I told myself. Just in case. He must have used that to initiate the deposit for the home. I wasn't sure what hurt more, that he was doing it or that he was doing it behind my back. Not even the decency to sit me down and pretend it was for my own good. They were going to spring it on me like a birthday gift. Happy Mother's Day, Mom. You're being evicted from your life. The kettle on the stove began to whistle. I hadn't even realized I'd turned the burner on. I shut it off and poured myself a cup, more for the motion than the comfort. I didn't drink it. Instead, I walked to the living room and sat down on the couch. The same couch where Douglas used to lie with his head in my lap when he had fevers. Where Ava once curled up to hear my stories about when I was a girl. Where I sat and waited every year for someone to remember that I mattered. I placed the envelope beside me. Then I picked up the phone. I called Douglas. It rang 4 times before he picked up. His voice was casual, distracted. Hey Ma. Sorry I didn't call earlier. Been a busy day. How are you? Busy. Of course. I'm fine, I said, my voice quiet. Just had some unexpected mail delivered. There was a pause. Then a shift in his tone. Oh. What kind of mail? A welcome packet, I said. From Morning Grove Retirement Living. Silence. I believe it was meant for you, but the delivery driver gave it to me. More silence. I could hear him breathing. Then came a fumbling noise like he was covering the mouthpiece, followed by a muffled, "She knows." I waited. Look, Ma, he finally said, we were going to talk to you about that. No, Douglas. You weren't. We were just trying to figure out the best way to help. Rachel thought. Rachel doesn't know me. And you clearly don't either. His voice cracked just slightly. It's not like that. I stood slowly, holding the phone in one hand, the envelope in the other. You sent me food like I was a stray dog. You canceled Mother's Day. You took my money. And now you're making plans to remove me from the home your father and I built. The home I let you grow up in. He sighed. You're making this dramatic. No, I'm seeing it clearly. For the first time in a long time. I didn't yell. I didn't cry. I just said, don't come here again. I'll make arrangements myself. And I hung up. My hands were steady. I looked around my home and made a decision. I was not going to be erased quietly. The phone didn't ring again that night. Douglas didn't call back. No apologetic texts. No explanation. Nothing. I suppose once you've been exposed, there's not much left to say unless it comes with shame or decency, and my son seemed to have neither. After I hung up, I just sat there. For a long time. The welcome packet lay beside me on the couch like a snake that had slithered into my house without warning. The more I stared at it, the clearer everything became. This wasn't a decision made overnight. This was a plan. A quiet, coordinated betrayal, tucked beneath polite smiles and missed phone calls. While I knit blankets and baked lemon cakes and watched the mailbox for holiday cards, they were counting down the days until I could be tucked away, labeled and stored somewhere with emergency buttons and schedule boards and soft rooms meant for fading women. Well, I was not fading, and I would not be stored. The next morning I rose early. I didn't cry. I didn't waste time asking why. I packed away the cake, tossed the tea, and went straight to my file cabinet. There were still a few things I had left untouched, things Douglas didn't have access to. My lawyer's number was one of them. I called her before I even had breakfast. Michelle Dillard. We went to high school together back in 1966. She'd gone off to college, then law school, and now had her own small practice not far from here. I hadn't spoken to her in years, but she picked up on the second ring like we were still sitting next to each other in history class. Millie Carter, she said. Haven't heard from you in too long. What's going on? I need to change my will, I said. Today. She didn't ask why. Just told me she'd be by that afternoon. By noon she was in my living room with her briefcase and a stack of fresh papers. I poured her coffee, told her everything, what Douglas had done, the nursing home, the financial betrayal, all of it. She didn't blink. That's elder fraud, she said. You want to file a claim? No, I said. I want to make sure he never touches another dime of my money again. And I want the house safe. We spent 2 hours going over my documents. I updated my will. I revoked his power of attorney. I changed the name on all my accounts to a living trust with Michelle as co-executor. I transferred ownership of the house into the trust and had Michelle notarize it all. It felt like sealing bricks over a door someone else tried to sneak through. When we finished, she looked at me with those sharp lawyer eyes and asked, "Do you want him to know?" I shook my head. Not yet. Why? Because I'm not done watching them reveal themselves. Later that day I heard from Ava. My granddaughter. 17, soft-spoken, always watching, always listening. I hadn't heard from her in months. Not since Christmas, when she sat next to me during dinner and didn't say a word. I'd assumed Rachel had gotten to her too, that maybe she'd been told to keep her distance. But now she was calling me. Her voice was quiet. "Grandma, are you okay?" I took a breath. "Why do you ask, baby?" There was a pause. Then, Dad and Mom were arguing. "I overheard something about you being mad. About a delivery." I didn't answer right away. I wanted to ask her if she knew. She had been part of it. But I stopped myself. Ava wasn't like them. She still had her own heart. "I found something they didn't want me to see," I said. "And I think I found out the truth about how they see me." She didn't say anything. Then she whispered, "I think I already knew." That's when I felt something crack. Not pain but relief. Someone in that house still had a conscience. "I want to come see you," Ava said. "Whenever you're ready," I told her. "The door's open. But just you, all right?" "Okay." She showed up 2 days later. She'd grown taller. Her hair was longer. She looked like a woman and a child at once. Eyes full of guilt and something else too. Resolve. She sat on the same couch where the welcome packet had landed days earlier. She looked at the table and saw the envelope still there. "I heard Mom say you were overreacting," she said. "But I knew it wasn't nothing." I handed her the papers. She read them slowly. When she finished, her hands were shaking. "She lied to me," she said. "They both did." I didn't respond. I just watched her process it all. "Grandma," she said finally, "what are you going to do?" "I've already done it," I told her. "I changed everything. They can't touch anything now. Not the house. Not the money. Not me." She looked relieved, then ashamed. "I'm sorry I didn't say something sooner," she whispered. "I knew something wasn't right. I just didn't know how to help." "You helped just now," I said. We sat in silence a while. Then I made her tea. We drank it together like nothing had changed, except everything had. That night I slept peacefully for the first time in years. Because I wasn't helpless. I wasn't forgotten. And the house they wanted to steal? It still had its owner. Me. It's strange how a home can feel entirely different once you stop being afraid of losing it. The walls hadn't changed. The furniture hadn't moved. But everything in me had shifted. After Ava left that evening, I walked from room to room in the quiet, pausing in doorways, touching the trim, the wallpaper, the edges of my life. I'd spent 46 years in this house. I'd laughed in it, grieved in it, grew old in it. And for a brief moment, I'd let myself believe someone could just come in and take it from me. Not anymore. The next day, I stood out on the porch with my tea and watched the neighborhood wake up. Mr. Franklin across the street watered his tomato vines. A woman in a pink tracksuit walked her golden retriever past the mailbox. It was ordinary, but peaceful. For the first time in weeks, I wasn't waiting for anything. Not for calls. Not for explanations. Not for the other shoe to drop. Then I saw Rachel's SUV turn onto the street. It pulled up in front of my house and parked, too close to the curb as usual. She stepped out in her cream blouse and heels, sunglasses perched like armor. She didn't have Ava with her. Just her purse and a paper folder in one hand. I didn't invite her in. She walked up the porch steps stiffly, clearly rehearsed. She stopped just short of the door, probably surprised to see me standing there, calm and unmoved. "Mildred," she said, forcing a smile. "Can we talk?" "You've got 3 minutes," I said and sipped my tea. She cleared her throat. "I think there's been a big misunderstanding. Douglas and I were only trying to do what's best for you. You forged my medical information and initiated a transfer to a facility without my consent," I replied. "That's not a misunderstanding. That's a betrayal." Her smile didn't falter, but her neck flushed red. "We thought we were helping." "No," I said. "You thought you were getting rid of me." She held up the folder. "The home was beautiful. You would have had a private suite. A garden. Weekly massages. We only wanted to give you comfort." I stared at her. "You want to talk about comfort? Comfort is eating breakfast in your own kitchen. Comfort is choosing when you go outside, when you rest, when you speak. Comfort is freedom. Not polished isolation." Her hand twitched. We didn't mean for it to feel like that." "Then why did I find out through a delivery mistake?" I asked. "Why wasn't I given the respect of a conversation?" She had no answer. I let the silence stretch. Finally she said, "Look, Mildred. Douglas is upset. He said you locked him out of the accounts. Is that true?" "Yes," I said. "And the will. And the deed. And the trust. All of it." He blinked, stunned. "You can't do that without telling him." "I can," I said, and I did. Because it's mine. And because I finally remembered who I was before your husband tried to make me feel like a burden." Rachel's mouth opened, then closed. She stepped back like she was ready to regroup. "I don't know what Ava told you," she added. "She didn't tell me anything," I said. "I told her." Rachel's jaw tightened. She turned to go, then hesitated. "You're going to regret this." "No," I said. "But you might." She walked off my porch without another word. I watched her drive away, calm and sure. That afternoon I called Michelle and had her draft a letter to Morning Grove, formally rejecting any and all arrangements made in my name. I sent copies to my primary physician and the state licensing board. I wasn't just protecting myself, I was leaving a paper trail. No one was ever going to use my age as a weapon again. 2 days later, Ava came back. She brought me a bouquet of daffodils she picked from behind the school. She wore no makeup, no pretenses, and hugged me like she meant it. "Mom's furious," she whispered. "I know," I said. "Let her be." We sat on the back patio together. She talked about college applications, about how her friends were all obsessed with phones and filters, and how no one seemed to care about anything real. I told her about her grandfather, How he used to plant tomatoes in the yard and talk to them like they were children. How we once danced in the kitchen barefoot after losing half our money on a bad business loan. How I held Douglas when he had croup so bad I thought he'd stop breathing. He wasn't always like this, I said softly. I know, Ava replied. But he is now. She told me she wanted to spend more time here. That something about this place made her feel grounded. I told her I'd always have space. That she didn't have to wait for a holiday to come home. She looked at me, eyes full of tears, and said, "You're the only adult in my life who tells the truth." That night I wrote a letter. Not to Douglas. Not to Rachel. To myself. I wrote down everything I remembered about my life. My strength. My fears. My dreams. I wrote about the day I became a mother, the day I became a widow, the day I became forgotten, and the day I remembered myself again. Then I folded it and placed it in the top drawer beside my bed. Because if anyone ever tried to rewrite my story again, I wanted my version to be the one that survived. The next few days passed quietly, and for once I welcomed the quiet. No more voicemails from Douglas. No surprise visits. No sneaky paperwork arriving at my door. Just me, my garden, my tea, and the peace that came from finally putting a stop to the storm they had been stirring behind my back. I tended to my azaleas that morning, humming a hymn I hadn't sung in years. The sun felt good on my skin, and the breeze carried the smell of fresh-cut grass. I wasn't thinking about betrayal. I wasn't thinking about revenge. I was thinking about how free it felt to stand on my own porch and know without a doubt that it was still mine. Then I heard the car. It wasn't Rachel's SUV. It was Douglas's old sedan. The one I helped him buy years ago when he couldn't afford the down payment. It pulled into the driveway slowly, like it didn't quite know if it was welcome. He stepped out looking smaller than I remembered. No suit this time. No smile. Just khakis, a wrinkled polo shirt, and the look of a man who finally realized his mother wasn't the fool he thought she was. I stood at the edge of the porch and waited. He walked up to the steps but didn't climb them. "Ma," he said. "Can we talk?" "You've been talking for weeks, Doug," I said. "Just not to me." He looked down at his shoes like a child caught with sticky fingers. "I didn't mean to hurt you," he said. "I really thought it was for the best." "No, you thought it was easiest for you." He looked up, guilt plain on his face. "Rachel pushed it. You know how she gets. She said you were starting to forget things. That it wasn't safe for you to live alone." I raised an eyebrow. "What did I forget, Douglas? The PIN code I gave you access to? Or the will you never read but assumed would benefit you?" He didn't answer. "Don't blame your wife for the choices you signed your name to." "I was scared," he said. "We've got the girls, the house, the bills. It's all so much. And I just thought, maybe it was time to start thinking ahead." "So you planned a future that didn't include me," I said. Behind my back. He took a breath. "I'm sorry. I didn't say anything." He reached into his back pocket and pulled out an envelope. "I brought this." I didn't move. "It's a letter," he said. "Not from me. From Ava." That made me pause. I walked down 2 steps, took the envelope and opened it right there in front of him. It was handwritten. No formatting. Just raw words. "Dear Grandma, I know things have been awful lately and I feel like I should have said something sooner. When I found out what they were planning, I didn't know how to speak up without them shutting me down. I was scared. But after I saw you last week, I wasn't scared anymore. You're the only one in this family who has ever made me feel seen. I don't care what they say. I know you're strong and I know you're still sharp and I know they were wrong to do what they did. I love you. I'm proud of you. And I want to spend more time with you, if you'll have me. Love, Ava." I folded the letter slowly and looked at Douglas. "She's a better person than both of you," I said. "I know," he whispered. I nodded toward the driveway. "You can go now." He looked like he wanted to argue, but he didn't. He turned and walked back to his car. When he drove away, I didn't feel triumphant. I just felt tired. Tired of men who shrink when things get hard. Tired of women who smile while they bury you. Tired of pretending forgiveness is automatic. Back inside, I placed Ava's letter in my drawer beside the one I wrote myself. I sat down, exhaled, and closed my eyes. Later that afternoon, Michelle stopped by to finalize the last piece of paperwork. She handed me the new title for the house, now secured under my name alone, immune to any future power grabs. "You did the right thing," she said. Most people would have ignored the signs until it was too late. I almost did, I replied. Until a stranger handed me the truth in a paper envelope. Michelle smiled. Funny how fate works. Before she left, she asked me if I had any final wishes she should record. Any legacy instructions beyond what we already covered. I nodded. I want Ava to have the house when I go, I said. Not because I owe it to her, but because she showed up. Because she asked questions when the others just made decisions. And because she still knows how to love with her eyes open. Michelle wrote it down. Done. That night I pulled out my recipe box. The one I hadn't opened in years. I flipped through cards covered in flour dust and little grease stains. Chicken pot pie. Buttermilk biscuits. Lemon pound cake. I wrote a new one. Title, Ava's First Dinner. Ingredients, 1 granddaughter, 1 kitchen, 1 memory that matters. I placed it on top. Because from now on I would cook for people who chose to stay. Not those who plotted how to make me disappear. The following Sunday, Ava came over with a tote bag and an apron. She stood on my porch looking more grown up than I remembered. Not because of makeup or clothes, but because of the way she held herself. Eyes steady. Shoulders square. She was no longer a child caught between parents. She was choosing sides, and she chose mine. You ready to cook? She asked. I've been ready since 1983, I said, opening the door wide. We made chicken and dumplings from scratch. She peeled the carrots too thick and dropped the measuring spoon into the flour, but I didn't care. She laughed at herself, wiped her hands on her jeans, and asked questions like she actually wanted to learn. I watched her stir the broth while humming to the radio, and for a moment I forgot what month it was. I forgot about the envelope. About the betrayal. About Douglas and Rachel and their retirement home scheme. All I saw was her. When dinner was done, we ate together at the kitchen table. No fancy china this time, just 2 chipped plates and mismatched glasses. The sun poured through the window like an old friend. We didn't speak much while we ate, and we didn't have to. Some silences are a blessing. After we finished, she helped me wash the dishes. She stood next to me, shoulder to shoulder, our hands wet and wrinkled in the soapy water. Grandma, she said softly, are you really never going to talk to Dad again? I dried a plate and set it on the rack. I didn't say never. But forgiveness takes more than an apology. It takes change. I don't think he knows how to change. That's not my responsibility, I said. My job was to raise him. What he does with what I gave him, that's on him now. She nodded, but I could tell it still sat heavy in her chest. You love him, I said. And that's okay. But don't let love blind you to the truth. People who love you can still hurt you. And people who hurt you don't always deserve a second chance just because they share your blood. She looked at me with those clear eyes and said, that's why I'm here. That night I showed her the garden. The azaleas were blooming. The moon was low and wide, casting silver across the flower beds. We sat on the porch swing and rocked slowly as the night settled in. I told her stories about her grandfather, how he used to whistle while fixing the roof, how he fell off a ladder once and landed in the rose bush, cursing up a storm until I handed him a glass of iced tea. She laughed until her stomach hurt. It was the kind of night I thought I'd lost forever. Later, after she left, I went to my room and opened the drawer where I kept the 2 letters, hers and mine. I reread them both. One written in fear. The other written in love. Together they told the full story. And then I did something I hadn't done in years. I wrote a new letter. To myself. Dear Mildred, you are not what they called you. You are not old and in the way. You are not confused. You are not a burden. You are the root. You are the keeper of stories. You are the woman who remembered herself just in time. Don't forget again. Not ever. I folded it and placed it with the others. The next morning I made coffee and sat at the dining room table with the newspaper. Not the digital kind. The real one. I circled an ad for community storytelling at the local library. Seniors welcome. Bring your voice, your truth, your experience. I smiled. Later that week Michelle called me. You sure you want to do this? She asked. I am. She clicked her pen on the other end of the line. All right. I've updated the will. Ava inherits the house. The savings. The rights to your memoirs if you ever write one. I'm already working on the title, I said. How's this? The day I was supposed to disappear. She laughed. That'll get some attention. Good. Let the world see what happens when you try to bury a woman who still has fire in her bones. On Saturday, I saw Rachel's SUV pass my street again. She didn't stop this time. Maybe she'd finally realized I wasn't going anywhere. Or maybe she knew she'd lost the battle she never imagined I'd fight. Either way, she drove off. And I stayed right where I belonged. In my house. In my power. In my name. Not Mildred the patient. Not Mildred the dependent. Just Mildred Carter. Mother. Grandmother. Survivor. And the woman who ate alone on Mother's Day, only to uncover the truth and make sure no one ever erased her again.